Hey, it's Miss Ulrich. Here again to give you another lesson. I miss you guys so much and wish we were in our classroom. But today we're going to be talking about more of the ecosystem and kind of the levels of the ecosystem. Okay, so you guys have already talked about abiotic and biotic factors. Abiotic meaning things that are non-living, meaning they were never alive, versus biotic could be things that were once alive, like dinosaurs, or any waste products from living things. So let's get into our levels of organization. So the first thing we're going to start out with our levels of organization is what is everything made out of? And we talked about at the beginning of the year that everything is made out of atoms. And atoms work together to form molecules. So like this molecule of water, we have two hydrogens and an oxygen, also known as a compound. And so those molecules form together to make macromolecules, which are just larger molecules that help us build bigger things like organelles. Now, organelles are only found in cells that are eukaryotic. So if it's a prokaryotic cell like bacteria, they're not going to have organelles in them, right? And so the organelles help us form a cell. And remember, a cell is the smallest thing that's still considered alive, okay? And so these cells form together to make tissues. And those tissues can then form together to make organs such as a bone or a heart or a liver. And then those organs then build an organ system, so like our skeleton or our digestive system. And then we get into the real part of the ecology of this, where we start out with the organism. So here we have an elephant as our organism. And then many elephants together would make a population. Now ignore the grass in this picture because it's only the elephants that count as that population. And then we jump a step farther, making a community. So a community is where we're going to have many different organisms interacting together. So we have the elephants, the grass, the gazelle, the giraffe, the tree. This is all a community. Now, if we get a step bigger, we make an ecosystem. And so an ecosystem is going to be a community, but also with an abiotic factor. So what separates a community and ecosystem is that an ecosystem has an abiotic factor, such as here is water. And then from the ecosystem, we go to the biosphere. And the biosphere, we're just looking at the Earth and where life exists on the Earth. Okay. So an organism is anything that can independently carry out life processes. So you can see a bunch of pictures of organisms there. All right, a population, this is going to be a group of individuals of the same species that live together and are in the same area. So these guys are going to compete for food, water, shelter, and mates. So we have bats that are living here under a leaf, these wolves competing for food, and some penguins who found a mate and had a baby. Okay. Communities, these are going to consist of populations of different species interacting with one another. So here we have some vultures coming in to try to get a meal, some lions that have killed our poor little zebra down here. And so these guys are all interacting and living in the same area. Okay. Then we have an ecosystem, and this is a community of organisms and its abiotic environment. So here we have our big abiotic factor being the water, but all these organisms live and interact with one another and have this abiotic factor that's going to be affecting their ability to live there. So not only water, but the temperature is also going to affect them. Okay. And then we have the biosphere. This is the part of the Earth where life exists. And so remember, the biosphere was just one of those four spheres that we studied, and the biosphere is going to be affected by the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, and the lithosphere. And we need all those other three spheres to help keep the biosphere alive. Okay. So kind of to go back through and review real quick with you guys, we have the individual rabbit. Many rabbits make a population. Many rabbits and other species, such as the trees, the grass, and the fox, make a community. And these guys all together with an abiotic factor like the river makes an ecosystem, and then they all live on the Earth, which is part of the biosphere. Okay. And so there's tons of examples here that you can look at, and I just want to go over and do a little review with you. So a hawk, a snake, prairie dogs, grass, and the bison, this would all be considered what? This would be considered a